I'm Larry Baumgartner. That's Lawrence. The date is June 5th, 2021. And we're here at the house. It's 806 Fire Street in Maumee, Ohio.
I'm Sue Baumgartner. Formal name, Sue Ann. Same date, same address.
On my father's side, the Baumgartners, Grandma was a Vogel. She married Victor Baumgartner. They lived in Germany. Came to the States in 1921. A couple of the brothers came with Grandpa at that time. Grandpa's cousin had already settled here. He was at Eastside Sheet Metal was his business. He owned that business. So Grandpa went to work for him. So he was a sheet metal worker his whole life. Grandma stayed at home, of course, and raised the kids. There was Howard, Victor, Dorothy, Marianne, Joe. That's the best I can think of. On my mother's side, I don't know when Grandma and Grandpa settled here, but they started, I think, with their parents in New Rigo. Mm-hmm. And they had a grocery store in New Rigo, and then moved to Toledo. Both of the parents lived on the east, grandparents lived on the east side. Back to Grandma and Grandpa Baumgartner, they were on Parker Street, and Grandma and Grandpa Hauk were on White Street. Both belonged to a German Catholic parish, Sacred Heart Parish. Now back to Grandma and Grandpa Hauk. They settled on White Street, and Grandpa, he was a teller with People's Savings Bank. So they never drove. None of the grandparents ever drove a car. So Grandpa would walk from White Street across the bridge and to People's Savings downtown in the mornings. The Sun paper said that you could set your clock on Charlie when he's walking over the bridge, because every day he had that same pattern that he did that. Grandma started to raise all the kids. Corrine was the oldest. Florence was second, then Mary. Then there was Margaret. There was Eleanor. The boys were Charles, Uncle Chuck, Thomas, Ed. I think that's close to it. I think there were 8 of them. Mm-hmm. And many grandchildren of hers. On that side, there were 45 cousins, with my brother being the oldest of the cousins. He turns 79 this year, and he was the oldest of 45. Come to think of it, on the Baumgartner side, there were, I think, about 10, and then the 3 families there.
My grandma, LaPlante, she was always kind of a caregiver. She had somebody living with her all the time. She took care of her mother, Grandma Barry. She was white hair thick with waves all in it. It was very pretty. And I just noticed going through some stuff. She had a guy named Jim Landis. I always thought he was a cousin, but I'm not sure where he came from. But at the cemetery, there's no name on the gravestone, but there is a baby in there that was Jim Landis's baby. And it's in where Mom and Dad and Grandma and Uncle Meddy and them are. So I just saw it on the plot. I remembered that. So Grandma always took in people. Uncle Glenn was another one she took in, and he's not an uncle, but he was always an uncle. And he came down with polio, and he walked with a cane and that for a long time. So those were just people that I guess caregiving kind of ran in the family. She had 7 brothers and sisters. Her maiden name was Barry, and they lived in New Jersey and all over, so I didn't get to know very many of them. I never met her first husband. He died young, and she married who we call Uncle Meddy because it was her husband's brother. So he was always an uncle before he was a grandfather. So he has always been Uncle Meddy to us because that's who he was. It was her husband's brother that she married, after he had passed away. So I never had met that grandfather, but Uncle Meddy was always around. And I don't know about any other brothers or anything on that side. I really don't. It was mostly all Grandma's side. My dad's side, he had his mother was Grandma Rhoda Whistler. She remarried. It was from Griner to Whistler. Never knew her husband either. And he was a weird guy. I don't know. He was very quiet. He had a club foot. I remember he had a shoe that was like this big. And they had an entrance foyer, and he had a huge desk in there, and he was always sitting at his desk. That's all I really remember him. He never said much to us or did anything. He just was there in the house when we went to go visit Grandma. So, and I think she had 3 or 4 brothers or sisters, but not real close or anything. She always lived by the zoo, so we lived on East Side, and every time I come over the bridge to go to Grandma's, I would get car sick on the bridge before. I was horrible.
Yes, she lived by the zoo, didn't she?
Yeah.
At that time.
Yeah, so.
She was a great Detroit Tigers fan.
Yeah, she would sit in a rocking chair in front of the TV and watch baseball. She loved baseball. But she had a solarium, they called it, what would be a sunroom now. So it was just a room, 3 sides with windows, and it had shelving all the way around, metal shelves that were full of African violets. She raised African violets. Many, they would be big, and you think of a shelf like this, 5 shelves, she had hundreds of them. So I guess that's why I like to keep a violet. Who else is there?
So
That's
then
all.
what about your parents?
My mom and dad. Quiet. Just did her own thing. Liked to bake, liked to keep house. She worked for a while, but my dad didn't like it. She worked at Titke's. She took a bus and went downtown to Titke's. And Dad didn't like it. She didn't have supper when he came home, so that was short-lived. Dad worked at Champion Spark Plug. He was there for years. He was a welder. So we'd get emergency calls where he's got a ember in his shoe or in his head or whatever, and you have to go get stitches and, burns. He'd have burns like that in his ankles and stuff from welding because he's up on supports and stuff and can't do much. Then he lost his finger at work, got it into a machinery, and he had a glove on, and it pulled this finger and this off, tore the ligaments right out of his arm. Then they operated. Doctor did the first time, took what was left here and made him a thumb. That's the first time the doctor had ever done that. And that's so he could have something to grasp. And he made it work fine. So he liked to do hobbies. He liked railroads. He made miniature train cars and the houses. He had a whole thing in the basement, train set, where whole village. And it was probably about half the size of the room.
Your mom spent a lot of time with your grandma too.
Yeah, she only lived a few blocks away, so they would, she'd go over there, and I'd go by. We used to walk home from school, and so for lunch, which was silly. It's like 9-10 blocks, you get your little hurry up and eat and go back. But I'd always look because Grandma lived like a half a block over. There was an alley, then it was her house. So between the houses, if my mother was over there, she'd holler, "Sue Ann," and I got to go to Grandma's and eat lunch then. Grandma was baking bread, so she would tear it as it was raisin and fry little donuts and stuff, and that would be my lunch and go back to school.
So my mom was, I don't know if she worked at all. I think they lived in an apartment for just a very short period of time, because I don't know exactly at what age they got married and that. But it must have been when Uncle Chuck came along, he's the oldest. They moved in on Spring Grove with my Uncle Gus. My Uncle Gus was a bachelor, so we moved in there and must have lived there maybe 10 or 12 years before we moved out and bought a place of their own. Because I think I was in the 7th grade when we moved on to Valleywood. So we moved from Spring Grove to Valleywood at the time. Uncle Gus was a little bit of a curmudgeon, but he was okay too, because we would, like on Saturdays, we could walk down maybe with him to Byers Bakery down on Star Avenue. That was probably about a mile from the house or so. And he'd buy some baked goods and bring them back and that type of thing. But most of the time, his meals, he ate them up in the room himself. But there was one kid, and then 2 kids, and then 3 kids, and then 4 kids. Yeah, so he didn't marry, so he didn't want kids probably. So anyway, yeah. But Mom was a very good lady. She took good care of the kids. That's what she did, and she did a good job taking care of us kids. And because Dad, he was an accountant by occupation. Urban Grotto was about 3 blocks from the house, and he pretty much ran Urban Grotto Fuel. So up in the mornings, of course now there's these kids around the house too. So there was a bathroom in the basement, just a stool. So he would get his tea, and I don't know what he ate with it, but maybe some toast or something, and would go to the basement there. And of course now we're back in the day where you had a morning paper and an afternoon paper. So we had Toledo Times in the morning, Toledo Blade in the afternoon. So he had the paper to read there, and then we had one bathroom. So we're shuffling 4 kids, to be off to school in that. So, but he would get it was both oil and coal fuel. So he would get the drivers off in the morning with that. The coal people loaded their own, the oil people, and they would check out, and they would have the list of where going to. And then they also sold appliances there. They sold paint there, and he did the bookkeeping on those things. So that's probably a little bit where I picked up, the paint business. I would work Saturdays with him down there, and that was stocking the shelves and dusting the cans off or something, that type of thing. But then Mom pretty much took care of us. Then we moved to Valleywood, and then we were I think I was 12, so Chuck would have been a young teen and that type of thing. And our house was the hangout. So all the boys in the neighborhood, all my friends in that was our hangout on the thing. And Ma had notes around the house, the directives when she wasn't there and that type of thing. And that was like, do not take the lampshades off.
They all played cards, poker and stuff around in the living room.
Well, we might do a little bit of wrestling around too. Yeah. So she said, and another note was, do not roll up the carpet, because it was area carpet. So those type of things. But with it being the hangout and that, and we actually set up a little bowling alley in the basement with wooden pins and bowling ball about like so big. So I guess that's how I got interested in that other part of it too. So, but she was a really good lady and took very good care of us. And then Mary Kay came along years later. She's I forgot what the gap is in between there, but I think Mom was about 40 years old when she was born, you know. And then, of course, Dad, when he turned 49, he had ulcers, he had stomach cancer with half his stomach removed in that. And then at 49, he went in the hospital, and we really didn't see him the last time because we got a call that he was in the hospital. But he was in the hospital and being treated, you know, that type of thing. They ran the electrocardiograms and everything seemed to be okay. And then like 2 o'clock in the morning, he passed away. It was
from heart attack.
It was a period of time before they did stress tests. Within about 6 months in that, the cardiologist started doing those things. So the thing was, they didn't know that there was 100% blockage. So then he passed that quickly that evening. And then we don't know exactly what the timeline was, but a little bit later, then Mom remarried and moved out to Coys with Chuck Laggio. And I think you kids got to know a little bit about that. He had some toys out there and stuff like that. And then years later he passed on, and then she moved back in. Dad did a very good job too, only as far as raising us in that, you know, he gave us directive and things to do, that type of thing. I spent Sundays with him, maybe when he was collecting stamps or when he was doing coins and that type of thing. So, you know, but he was very bit, you know, most of his days were 12-hour days. So, you know, just the days of rest over the weekend then. So, well, except that we did over a period of time. His older brother, Uncle Howard, had 4 children and we had 4. And so the thing was, well, we had 3 at that time, excuse me. And then Mary Kay came along later. But we used to go to East Harbor on Sundays. That was a recreation. And you know, so on Sundays, a lot of times it was that. Another thing was with my Uncle Art. That was the other thing that Chuck didn't get out as much as me, but I used to go fishing with Uncle Art and my dad.
Uncle Art was married to Aunt Dorothy, his father's sister, Dorothy.
Yeah, so that was the other thing that we did, you know. That's the overbrief of it, yeah, overview.
My brother was 11 years older than I was, so it was a big difference, pretty much. And then my sister was 5 years older than I was, so I was the baby. And but yet we still would go on vacation. What my parents did was look in the Blade, find a rental cottage up in Michigan, and we would go up in Michigan and never see this cottage till the day you rent it. And it was always big surprises, but we always went as a family and stuff. And Carl took a friend and things, and they fished and did stuff. And I guess that's probably why we started doing it then. We rented cottages at Devil's Lake and Round Lake and that with you guys. So. But yeah, Carl lived, he died at 55, and my sister died at 75. So maybe just a couple years ago, yeah. When I would babysit, of course, he's not supposed to be there, so he would come in the back door off the alley, and we'd stay in the back of the house so nobody could see. After we put the kids to bed, nobody would know, you know, because they had 3 kids all in a row that were each were a year apart. So we did that.
When we lived on Spring Grove, we would play just catch and a little bit of football, but that we played in the street. It would come over the police radio, and there was another gentleman at the end of the street, and when it came across the police radio, he would send a runner and say the police are coming, and then we would have to disappear for a short bit, and then and they they just stroll down the street just to make this guy happy, he knew where we were at and that type of thing. Then we also, the hobby we picked up was we ended up at the bowling alley. So that's when I got my first job. I think I was like 13, and I would stoke the furnaces. They had a thing where you just put the fine coal in there, and then it would feed all night and all day, a certain period of time, and then clean the alleys. And then we also hung out with the friends of ours down there.
So you guys had a big family. What was it like? Was it?
It wasn't bad at all. Corinne and I pretty much paired up, and Uncle Chuck and Helen pretty much paired up. So if there was any little squabbles within things, that was part of it. Yeah. Now it was probably hectic, but I don't remember whether, I don't think it was hectic.
They sat down to dinner every night.
Yes.
And his mother always had a mixing bowl full of mashed potatoes. That was at every meal. Every
meal we had.
That
go
was
through.
their filler to go with whatever meat.
She made the best mashed potatoes in the world. Yeah, yeah. Well, and most of the meals were like pork or a beef roast, that type of thing, and a lot of those were made with pressure cookers, because they were usually a little tougher cut, and we ended up with some nice meals that way.
She made a twice baked potato that we learned how to make, where you baked the potato and then took the insides and scooped them out and then put them back in the potato shell.
Yep. Well, she'd mix a little Velveeta into them and have a pat of Velveeta on top and back in the oven for a short period of time. But with 5 kids, it was a tight budget and things, and she did an extremely good job with the shopping. The way she would shop, there was a place down on Star Avenue, and it was E.J. Smith's, and probably a Safeway or something like that. Anyway, the paper would come out on whatever day, a Thursday or something, and she would call Marge, and then Marge would take the order for everything, and then they would deliver it to the house, because Mom never drove, and Dad had the car.
She didn't drive till after Chuck died. Then she took driving lessons.
No, I think after Dad died.
After your dad died?
Yes, because there was a period of time in between there that she, but then for 25 cents they delivered it to the house. And
I went to Raymer for kindergarten, and these were all walkable. We always walked to school. And then I went to St. Thomas Aquinas on White Street through 8th grade. Then I went to White High School my freshman year, because the vocational school at Whitney was only 3 years. So you had to go to, so I went to White, then I went downtown to it was just Whitney Vocational. Then they connected with Maycomber across the street was the other vocational. And it became Maycomber Whitney. But at Whitney, I was in the health field then. So I went into the dental part and got a job at a dentist office. And so on your senior year, you were able to go to school in the morning, and then I took a bus out Central Avenue to go to work for the rest of the day and that then. And then he hired me after. But I started out going to school, I was paid 50 cents an hour. So that was cheap labor for a dentist, for you to do anything around there, and to learn what you're doing. So, and then after high school, he went in the service, and I had his car for my senior year, and then we got married in 65. So that's where I went.
when did you graduate?
I graduated in 64. We got married in 65. I still worked as a dental assistant there till Brenda was born. And then I stayed home till after Suzette was born. Because I went back to, when she started wearing her brace, I went back to work then at another dentist then.
So she took 10 years off. Well, not really took them off. She took care of them kids. Yeah. So I went to Garfield for kindergarten, and then after Garfield I went to Sacred Heart Elementary School. It was roughly about a mile's walk, but you know, we walked it all the time. Graduated there in '57. Went to Toledo Central Catholic High School. We didn't continue on to college. Dad would have sent us to college, but I had enough of schooling at that time, and so.
You didn't go to college back then.
No,
Not very many of us.
No, but I went to work downtown at the Security Corporation. I worked with Elmer Smith in the basement, and he was transferring the Jeep paperwork over to microfiche. So he was transferring those things over. So I worked down there with him and gave him a hand with some of those things. That was just a starting job. So yeah, I was in the Army Reserves. Okay. So I went out to, it was Vietnam time. I had taken my test or done the physical, but we went to Cleveland and it took them 2 days to get a physical done. And we stayed in some flea bag motel with 3 other people that were overnight, guys I never knew or anything. So I said, I don't know, I'll have to look into some other options in that. And I went out to the University of Toledo, and they had a recon unit out at the university. So I went in and I became a member of the recon unit. And then in October, I think it was, I headed for Fort Knox. So I was at Fort Knox for basic training October, November, and I headed to Fort Polk, Louisiana after that. And I went from basic infantry to advanced infantry to, I went basic training, basic infantry, advanced infantry. So I was a foot soldier the whole time when I was down there. And then we came home at Christmas, and then I went back down after Christmas. I was in the reserves for 5.5 years after that. I ended up in a heavy equipment company. So we built airstrips, parking lots, things like that. Roads would have been part of it too. And I drove a 4 cubic yard pan is what I trained with, and that's what I did while I was there. Whenever the riots were in Los Angeles and at the Watts and also in Detroit, I ended up that summer, I had all 4 weekends where, well, I had a Saturday off and 2 Saturdays off, but that was it. Because the other 2 weekends, we went to Camp Perry, and we were there for riot training during that period of time, in the dead of summer, 90 degrees, and when you went out there, you went full gear. So it was, you had some hot summers, and within the platoon, the training would be that one would be the skirmish line and the other would be the protesters, and so your buddies would be throwing some sand at you and all this type of thing, and we got over it because we went to the bar in the evening, but sometimes you felt like you wanted to take that rifle and just smack them, and so but that's, yeah. So that's what I ended up.
You had to serve.
Well, I
5.5
went
years.
in March of '65, so I would have got out in March of '71. It was six. It ended up 6 years. Yeah, but during the time that I went to active duty and that, I had already been working, and so that time that I started in '62 with Sherwin-Williams, and then in '65 I went to active training and that, and they included that as part of my seniority and part of my retirement and that
You
type
got
of
to
thing.
come back.
Yeah. And I had my same job when I came back.
And this is our class rings, but I had his cut down to fit me because I didn't want all that wad of goop that you used to do underneath them. And I had mine ordered in his pinky size.
Which was up that way.
So Kay and Steve were dating, his friend and my friend, and Kay just lived a couple blocks from me, so then we just started hanging out with them.
And she only lived like 2 miles from me. What the heck? I don't think it was 2 miles, but
I remember going to his graduation, so we're thinking it was in '61. And I was just a freshman in high school. So he was graduating, and so Kay and Steve, Steve's been married 3 or 4 times since then, but we managed to stay together. Never see him.
To tell the truth, I hung out with the guys all the time. We did
everything.
We did
together.
everything. We went fishing. We
Went to the
guys.
quarries.
We went, the bowling alley and all those type of things. So I was just a young guy growing up.
He never dated anybody.
There was really
Only me.
not that much of an interest. That was my date there. Yeah, and she laughs at me because I dipped her for her first kiss. But now, see, yeah. So
he must have
we
been
dated.
impressed because he remembers that. I don't.
I remember you saying something about it. Dad was at Urban Grottos. Most of our dates we went to hockey games. And so we walked probably a couple of miles to the hockey games, and we went to hockey games regularly down at the sports arena.
Because his dad had the free tickets, so it didn't cost us.
Well, and we enjoyed doing it once
Yeah.
we got
was a
into
date.
it. We enjoyed that a lot. Yeah.
And then we would walk to Jones's and get a phosphate.
Yeah.
That was a ice cream place that you could go to.
And then walk her back down the street, and then
Walk me home.
yeah, walk her home, and then we'd.
I have a midnight curfew.
But we'd be on the
Or 11 o'clock or whatever
it was. We'd be on the side of the house anyway.
Because he didn't have a
causing-
car because
we'd
we
be
were
co-
walking.
We'd be coughing, we'd be talking and things, and what had happened and all that type of stuff. And then whatever the time it was, all of a sudden the light on the side of the house started blinking on.
My
and
mother
off.
would blink the light outside the door.
Oh, good night.
Like, get your butt in here.
So we dated for a period of time and figured out it's going to work out pretty
From
good.
61 to we got married in
Yeah.
65.
See, now when I went into service, we had already we how did we get engaged? That was Christmas.
Yeah,
Was that Christmas of that year?
had to be.
Of 65?
Yes,
Oh, or 64.
64.
Christmas of 64. That's when I'd gone into service, and that's when.
Let me think.
Yeah, we had already picked out the ring and things, so it was just the formality of it that period. So then we got engaged, and then when we got engaged, I was back in the service, and then Ma and Grandma Griner and that did a lot of planning and stuff, because I got back in March and
No, you got back in September. You went in March. Your timeline's
I went in October and got out in March.
wrong. Okay.
I don't think
We don't remember these things. We're not technical people.
But they were making plans during that time.
Oh, yeah. We had the retiree center downtown.
Projects catering.
Yeah. Well, you got married at 11 o'clock, so they had breakfasts back then. So you did your pictures at church and stuff. Then the immediate family and the bridal party, we had it in the church basement and had it catered. It was chicken dinner and stuff like that. And then at your reception, you had a buffet. It was always the baked beans, potato salad, ham, and stuff like that. So that's what they served at the receptions.
We served beer, that was it.
Yeah.
No liquor, no hard liquor.
So.
All my friends, all her friends and all them, they all drank beer. So did Mom and Dad, so yeah. So that was the menu on the thing.
Yeah. I was 19.
I was 22. She was still 19 when her first child was born.
I just missed my birthday by a week. I wanted to be 20 so bad.
You missed by 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But I didn't. As newlyweds, what did we do? We played cards a lot. We went to Uncle Chuck and Aunt Pat's and played cards a lot. Or we would babysit for them.
Yeah, we
But
babysat for
cards
them.
was our entertainment because we would play with Mom and Dad. And
Yeah.
his mom and dad always played cards,
We
not
didn't-
with us, but they had a poker group that they played with all the
But
time.
we didn't play hand and foot. What did we play?
Oh no,
I think
don't
we played
remember.
rummy or something.
I
Yeah.
can't remember.
Well,
but
we played cards at Grandma Baumgartner's too. My grandma's.
his,
They play cards there also. Yeah.
go to the hockey games, and
But
we
after
didn't go to the
newlyweds,
movies very much. No, because we had kids right away, so there wasn't a whole lot. But I do remember going over Chuck and Pat's and stuff.
yeah. We were babysitting at Chuck and Pat's when the Palm Sunday tornado.
Yeah, that hit too. That's my brother was wiped out in a Palm Sunday tornado. They went up into the
Vortex.
vortex and got dumped in the empty lot next to them, and the cedar chest came down on top of my sister-in-law's legs. The kids got spread out. They had to find them. Two boys were walking holding hands, and my niece was found just outside the swimming pool. She hit the wall, otherwise she would have been in the pool, and she had a sheet of glass cut her buttocks off. And she had a little boy in her room that they were watching, and he had a brain concussion, and that they found him with gray matter coming out, and he lost a leg. So it was like, as soon as Chuck and Pat came home, went to all the hospitals. Then we went around to they were in 3 different hospitals trying to find them all.
October 13th, 64. No, 63, 1963.
You're making things up.
No, but somewhere along the way,
You just know.
we came together as an assumption that this was what it was going to be. That's what happened. It wasn't a light bulb went off. It was a growing thing.
I may have been his only one, but I had a lot of boyfriends.
What-
So
when did
But-
you know?
Well,
I don't know. I guess because we were just together and it was a
yeah,
normal thing to
Hey.
do. We were comfortable.
her mom liked me. Made a difference.
Could have. We always shared bank account. It was all put in one. Some of our friends now still have one pays one thing and one pays another. It's amazing, but you know, we've always had one bank account.
And the money wise, I worked with Sherwin Williams, okay, and I was on a profit sharing when I was in the stores and that. So when you're on the profit sharing, the way we started off, we were paid once a month, one time a month, and then in a short period of time, maybe a year or so, they went to twice a month. So then that changed her budgeting a little because she always paid the bills, you know. And then after that, it went to every 2 weeks, which gave her a bonus because there was 2 extra pay periods. But with it being the way it was, she always worked the budget based on my salary, what I was getting paid. Then at the year was over at the end of August, and then any profit sharing would come about like the 1st of October.
Be a bonus check.
So the house was the way it was, and then we made changes as time went by, and you had those different things.
When we had the bonus check, then you could do a little more in the house or paint or buy something, you know.
This helped out a lot in the first years as far as
help pay doctor bills and stuff like that.
Oh
you
yeah,
catch up on.
anything. Well, yeah,
That's what we did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and made some changes around the house and that type of thing. So she always handled the money, and
We've made it.
And I always said you could tell, you know, if the kids were getting clothes or something, because we were having hot dogs for supper and we weren't having steak, you know, so it was, they were back off to school. So, you know, that was.
Needed shoes.
Yeah. And it was ended up being a good career. The most endearing quality is that she's able to put up with me if I go through a little bit of a temper tantrum or something. You know, I mean, you know, the thing is that what I've said to my children when they get married, you talk to the gentleman, and you see how happy she is today. Well, that's your aim in life, is to keep her that happy, you know. And usually at the bachelor party is that you never go to sleep on an argument. You never
Right.
put that to sleep, you know. But I think that we're able to just think the same and that type of thing.
Talk through any problems,
Yeah.
or just.
You know, when we were in early marriage and that, or not early, but when our friends that we have now, that are our enduring friends over the years, we had a group get together every month, and it was called Christian Family Movement. We had usually the priest was there with whoever had taken us under their wing and that. But what you did is you had a work plan that you took each month.
Group discussions.
And then you had a group discussion on that afterwards. Like, what's the biggest difficulties within and you would discuss this with a few of your friends
And
outside of it.
I think what we found out from going to that is you think this is only your problem in your family. But when you met with these other families, they all had the same problem. And you could talk about it and work through things that way. So you weren't alone, you know, raising your kids this way, or my kids this, or he's bugging me about something. It's everybody has that same situation.
And that's like with Bill and Mary, and back then it was Pat and Joe Rodriguez, and the Metzgers, and the Sutters.
Zellers.
So
we had our big church group that we did that with.
And you always finished up the meeting and stuff with
Food.
whoever's house it was at had the desserts, so that worked out good, you know.
What's your
She's
most
always had-
enduring thing?
She has big eyes. Big, beautiful eyes.
He's full of bullshit. A lot of it.
Oh, no. That's true.
Just that he is pretty easygoing. Don't take much. I mean, he doesn't
Well,
fly
you know,
off the handle.
the thing is that I, myself, have an extremely bad temper. Okay? So the thing is that once you got through your adolescence and growing up, you learned that you had to control that. And going with controlling that can be going, you have to go a little bit to the other side and be more understanding of what's happening. So those, because very seldom has anybody seen my temper, you know, but it is, you know, and the
Okay.
thing is, I matured and you outgrew it. But when you were going through those late teens and that, we're back to the thing that young men who survive between they're lucky to survive between like probably 14 and 17, because we do the dumbest things during that period of time. And
Okay.
so
You're going off again.
so that's part of it, you know. No, but really that's the thing.
He always helped with the kids. He was very good, even coming home from work and feeding and
But
anything.
I was very active. I took care of the whole sports program at
St.
and that's
James.
where the cookie baking came from.
Oh,
Because
don't go in on that.
because those high school girls wanted to form a basketball team. And I said, well, then we got to do something to put it together.
Let's go on with the questions.
Okay.
Just Chris was more stubborn.
Yeah. Oh,
tell him to go
Tell
to-
us about him. No.
I'd tell him to go to his room, and he would just stomp his feet and make me angry. And he would stop on the step. He wouldn't go up any farther. And so Brenda and Suzette are crying because Chris is getting spanked with a wooden spoon. He wouldn't cry.
One little story about Chris was that Chris was at home there, and you must have been gone with Mom, and I was painting the bedroom up there, and he was just a little squirt. I don't know how old he was, 3, 4, whatever. Anyway, you guys get home in that, and I had him he was in the closet painting the walls.
Yeah. Always include him.
Yeah.
Keep you guys busy. We put the basketball court out and back for you guys.
I tried a couple of times to build a skating rink back there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the winter. Ice skate.
Yeah.
That worked for a couple of times.
Yeah.
A month maybe.
You guys got to swim a lot next door at
The neighbors had a
Springer's.
pool.
Yeah.
Older, I would say maybe Suzette, because she would go off on her own and I wouldn't know where she would go. She'd say, oh, I'm going for a walk. And then she'd be gone for hours and I don't know where she went. So she was worrisome for a few years there.
And
Brenda was the angel, what can I say? I shouldn't put all this on tape.
No, this is the good stuff.
Well, but Brenda's best friends were across town. So she spent in high school. She spent
With
a lot of
Terry and
time
Gina Jungman
over at
and
St.
all that.
Catherine's. St. Catherine's.
Yeah. With her high school friends from Central.
However, the one evening when Brenda came home, and Mom said, "Be home at 11:30," and she comes pulling up about 11:35, 11:40, whatever it was, and she walks in the door, what time were you told to be home? And she said, 11:30. What time is it? So, okay. I'm talking to her, and she's saying, well, you know, it was only like 10 minutes and that. I said, next time be here when you. I don't care. I don't want you down at the corner when it comes here. And she was gonna go to her mom and, you know.
Plead her
I
case.
said, don't do it. I said, you'd have been grounded for a month. And so she calmed right
The
down.
first one had to take all the tough stuff. So my water hadn't broke or anything, and I had my hair up in rollers and stuff, but I wasn't having strong contractions, but we wanted to be by the hospital just in case. So my hair dried, I took my rollers out, had my hair all just right, and then some guy pulled up next to us and says, "Oh, is this your first?" Because we wanted to be there. So we sat there a couple hours before I had to go in.
She wasn't ready to go in then. No.
I wasn't going in till I had to, so.
Well,
that
and
was
then
Brenda.
I was, that one with you and with Chris, I was able to watch through the door. Okay, so now when Chris, the memory with him was the cord being wrapped.
We didn't hear him cry.
What? Yeah.
Not for a while.
No.
Not till, not during all that. It was like the next day or something, because they had to get the cord. He was kind of blue.
Yeah.
So.
And then with Suzette. Okay, Suzette, I was working at Sherwin-Williams, and I had gone over to the one store to pick up some paint because I was short on some things for some painters. So I was on the way back, and there's no communication except
A phone call.
the landline. So the phone calls made to the house, or made to the store, my cause, and her water had broke at home. And I'm a half hour from home and an hour from the store and back again. So I called the young man that worked for me that was working part-time and told him he was going to have to pick the paint up at the house. So I drove back with the paint, unloaded it in the front lawn,
It was
loaded
there
up
to
Ma,
cry.
and then Dave came over and picked it up. And then off to the hospital we went. So we go off to the hospital, and we get there, and of course I got to check in and that. They take her up in the wheelchair right then. Get up there, I get up there, and she's in the labor room already. And not. You were still in the. Is that the labor room just before you went in?
Delivery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Dr. Solis says to the nurse, says, "Get him ready," and the nurse says, "Well, he can't go in the delivery room." And little Dr. Solis says, "I told you, get him ready." Okay, so
We had gone to Lamaze for the third
Yeah.
one, so he
This is the first time they
first
were
time they
yeah,
were
so we
allowed.
had been through Lamaze and all that. So I was. He said I could go into there. So this is all happening. Oh yeah, because you crowned, didn't you? Yeah. So yeah. So
I moved fast.
So we go in there, and I'm standing there, and Dr. Solis says, "Okay, Larry, we're
He
going
was
to run through
foreign.
with this thing." He says, "You pass out, anything." He says, "You're going to lay there until the baby's born, and we're all set, and then we'll take care of you."
But he
and
was
then
fine.
we went through. Yeah. So that's
He was
that.
fine. But it was,
But that was
each of them was different. Suzette was quick,
yeah. She was very yeah.
and the other two. To do.
What would you just say?
What would you do as a family?
No, what did you just say?
Apple picking.
Apple picking, yes.
And we always went to the lake, took a vacation every year, rented a cottage, and then we started doing Aunt Green's. And then, what else did we just
We lived
do?
in we lived in the South End.
Went to the
We-
park.
We went to the zoo a lot of times, because we had a family membership from day one. Back then, they had Disney movies on Sunday
On
afternoons. So we went.
Because we never could afford a movie,
So they went
to the free movies at the zoo.
And with that, we could make it what type of day you wanted. If you had to go and pay for the zoo itself, then you had to make a big day of it. But this we could go over for a few hours anytime. So it was mainly Sundays, but a lot of Sundays we went to the zoo and just walk a little different part, or go over to the museum, or again see the movies.
Because we always like to go. They always fed the tigers after the movie, so you could go watch them feed.
Yep.
Throw these big hunks of meat into them and stuff.
Yeah, we knew the timing on most of those things. So and the aquarium was nice to walk through, and the whole thing.
Just
Yeah.
take a piece.
Yeah.
Music under the stars.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Music under the Stars we went to.
yeah. I mean,
Wow.
that was a big part
Just-
part of the recreational things, and that
And
that we were
sitting there listening to keep them occupied. I would take games or cards. We'd sit there and play war or do something to keep them occupied to listen to the music and
But,
pack our own popcorn. And
Yeah, and you played
So-
basketball.
of course, they were all involved in their sports.
Chris was in the 3rd grade when we started soccer, so and that was co-ed soccer. So you were playing soccer too. Yeah.
And another thing was we would go to Chuck and Pat's a lot. Kids would play, and then we put our kids down on the floor, and their kids would go to bed, and we'd play cards and stuff too.
So there was things always going on.
So there's always family things.
Yeah.
Then we got to know Mary and Bill when Brenda and Joe were in kindergarten, standing outside waiting for them to come out and that. So we've been friends with them since then. Would go to their house.
And then Metzger's was what, 5th or 6th grade?
Yeah, probably.
Well, yeah, that Suzette and
Well-
Chris were in school together.
Yeah. But we didn't get to know them right away.
No.
But Mary and Bill for the blizzard. We were tired of being cooped up, so we took what food we had, took our sled, put the kids in there, and pulled them over to Mary and Bill's house about 3 blocks away, and we ate together and stuff. So, it's just one of those things, get out of the house. And I think we did Christmas Eve with Uncle Howard and Aunt Rita and Kathy and Danny on my side. And then Christmas Day, they had a stairwell with a hole in it, so whenever I would wake up, I would just walk down to that stairwell to see if my presents were under the tree, and then I'd go back, because Santa didn't wrap presents. What came from Santa was unwrapped. That's what started with you guys then.
I think Christmas Eve was at Grandma Baumgartner's, and then we had Christmas morning, of course, and then, or vice versa. It was probably at Grandma Hoke's, and then we ended up, I think, with Christmas dinner. I think was at Grandma Baumgartner's, and that was another expectation when we were dating, and that
You had to be there.
I mean, Thanksgiving you ate and ate and ate, because we had one stop, and then I think we started early at your place, and then we ended up in Grandma and Grandpa Baumgartner's in the afternoon. So you ate at both places.
And you had the Hauk thing at the police.
Yeah, we had the house on Saturday. That was the Hauk family
They
get
rented
together.
a police
Athletic hall
hall.
over on that was out in the Point.
That
And
was
then
where all the aunts and uncles and all the kids showed
And
up.
then after that, it went to Sacred Heart's church basement, and that would be 50, 75 people, 100 people. And Grandma Hauk, Grandma lived to be 104, but Grandma Hauk was the main matriarch down there at the Thanksgiving, and she knew everybody that
She
was
wrote
there.
down who was there. She kept track.
I mean, because all the aunts and uncles were there, of course, yeah.
So,
We had a poker little get-together at the house there with my friends and that, and it went a little too late the one night because Mom and Dad were in bed sleeping and that, and it was a summer night, so it's very hot. The only air you had was open air conditioning, so the windows are open and that. And Frank Orbit next door, all of a sudden we hear, "It's time for you boys to shut up. Somebody's got to get up for work in the morning." And he was he's the nicest guy, because when I started with Sherwin-Williams, I didn't have a car then, and in Toledo Fence was right behind the Sherwin-Williams store, and I'd hitch a ride with him each day to work until I had a few bucks in the bank and went out and bought a car then.
I remember
And I didn't know.
with being young, coming home from grade school when it was so hot and stuff, because you didn't have only a fan and stuff. So it was like, okay, I'm hot. And I remember putting a sheet down on the carpet just to have something cool to lay on and lay there and watch Mickey Mouse Club. And that always came on at 4 o'clock every day. But I can remember doing that just to try and be cool and with the fan blowing on you.
And Spring Grove had the cut ceiling like that, so we were like in the attic area there, the Ho-ups, the Uncle Gus and the Beth and that, and then down from there were 4 kids, so there was a curtain went down through the middle, and the girls were on one side, slept on the one side, and Chuck and I slept on the other side, and I always Dad was softest, easiest going guy in the world. My dad was, but it was right around Halloween time or something, and Chuck and I thought it was a good idea with the younger girls, so we're doing a ooh, this type of thing, and the girls were carrying on, and so Dad just shut it up the stairs and said, "You don't want me to have to come up there." And Chuck and I decided,
No.
that's correct. We don't want them to come up here. So.
You think back, I wouldn't have thought about renting a cottage with my parents, and then we did that, and
Well, in the first
and
the
it
first
just
time
continues.
the first time to the cottage was Suzette was just a little squirt. We had settled on doing that like in January or February, and we hadn't known Mary and Bill for a month when we decided to go to the lake with them. with you 6 kids. There were 6 kids then? Yeah.
Yeah.
And ended up at Round Lake, where we followed Uncle Chuck and Aunt Pat at Round Lake there, because they were there so yeah.
So we started giving you guys your Christmas ornaments, and then continued it with
Yeah.
and I continued it with Easter and
Oh, yeah.
the Easter. You got Easter ornaments around, but yeah, I enjoyed doing your Christmas ornaments.
We used to hide the Easter baskets for you guys. We used to hide the baskets for those.
For the and playing cards and that. Looking at, we played cards, taught everybody their numbers and adding. Growing up with Mom and Dad, they liked to play bitch. That was my dad's name for this game. It was a kind of a rummy game.
Yeah.
But Grandpa always called it bitch. Great Grandpa.
Like pinochle.
Mom and we never played a lot. Mom and Dad and Uncle Howard and Aunt Rita always played pinochle.
But we did play pinochle
We
with
did
them.
play.
Double deck pinochle.
Yeah, we did learn how.
In recent years we played, and I don't like the game at all. We were completely lost.
It's because we're guessing. But with the kids, I think I like doing war because I taught you your numbers and how to match and all that. Something that no matter what age you could play. And what we move on to from there besides memory game and that silly photo game? Lily should remember this. I remember playing with her one time when I went out of the room to go to the bathroom and came back in. And I think she might have been like 7 or so. And I just kept getting draw 4s and draw 2s, and it realized she stacked the deck on me when I was gone. And I got all these terrible cards all in a row. And it took me a while before I realized,
Well,
Lily,
she
what
got
did
to
you
laughing,
do?
didn't she? She got to giggling so much.
So, yes,
Yeah.
that was another thing with Uno. Brenda's lived in Cincinnati for most of the kids' age, and Madeline lived in Louisville. So whenever we go visit, I would just take my grandma bag with me, and it would have everything in it, whatever game we wanted, except for big board games. But we did a lot of cards in that. There was bowling and Farkle and hand and foot. Yeah. That's 6 decks of cards, so they were a little bit older when they learned to play that. I liked Hawaii.
Yes, Hawaii was very, very good. Very good.
That was going to a different island every day, so it was pretty hectic.
Yeah.
But we did do the helicopter ride, and we did go the road to Hanoi. Walt drove all that. That was a fun trip.
Yeah. That was and Karen and Watt was along on that one.
Yeah.
And so,
What would be our next one? That was our 25th anniversary, wasn't it? Yeah.
well, my
was our-
60th birthday too was good. That was a good trip too, wasn't it?
Was that when we went out to California?
Yeah.
Yeah, to the
We went
races.
to the Queen Mary, Catalina Island,
Yeah,
Santa Anita
racetrack.
racetrack it, and
One of those. Which one floats around? Preakness or Breeders?
it was Breeders' Cup. Yeah.
Breeders?
Breeders' Cup at Santa Anita. You guys got us a convertible. We traveled up the coast.
Our children have planned many great vacations for us.
Yeah. We ended up Long Beach, up at San Francisco. Do we end up at San Francisco?
No.
No.
We started in San Francisco with our trip with Madeline
Well, that started in
Chris.
Los Angeles and ended up
and San Francisco.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that trip too. But
I liked Alaska. That was different.
Yes. Yes.
I really liked that. So
The only
That was
disappointment
fun.
with that was we got fogged out on the helicopter
yeah, we couldn't
ride
take our
to the
tour
top
there.
of the top of the glacier.
Yeah. miss that.
I would say probably the first Royal Caribbean trip was good too.
Our cruises.
Yeah. Yeah.
That-
I mean,
that
they've
first
all
one we
been
went-
good, but that one,
That
That
one we
one being
went
the
with Chuck
first
and
one.
Pat, and
yeah. But we're pretty well cruised out now. Yeah. But,
don't say that.
oh, you never
Maybe we want to go on another one.
know. No, you never know. Not right now, but yeah, you're right. They're always fun. There's
But, yeah,
they're always fun.
I wouldn't do anything right now with COVID.
She sat down when we the casino's there, and
Oh.
she
On a cruise ship.
yeah, she's playing her penny machines and that, and that's all we're playing that, and all of a sudden she hits $225. She went on one machine, bam, yeah.
I don't usually win, but
I forgot.
that's
which
big
one.
for me.
Yeah.
So
You know what sounds like a good trip is the American Orient Express. And that's the train rides.
What
that's
is
the train
that?
that's the train
you go
rides
by yourself.
to the different national parks.
I never heard of that.
I always
I
thought,
would always go back to Hawaii, but it's such a long flight. It's hard
Yeah.
trip now. It's terrible when you sit back and think all the places we have been. You know.
Nice that you've had
Yes.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, Grand Canyon and Arizona. We haven't seen a lot. Well, we did see a lot of California because we went with you guys there. We took our 4 oldest grandkids, which was Madeline, Tyler Morgan, and Brady. And we just went up to Greenfield Village with them. We went to Hershey Amusement Park, and just let them do what they wanted to do.
Cal-
You know,
We went to Kalamazoo,
We
the
went
Air
to
Zoo,
Ludington.
the Air Zoo,
they
we went
rolled
to
down
the-
the hills and got in the water. They had their clothes on. You
sand
know,
dunes. Yeah, the
the
sand dunes.
dunes.
Yeah.
That was a fun trip. They got the go-kart.
No, I thought they were teens.
No,
No.
they weren't teenagers. They
Oh.
wouldn't have done that with us. You know, take them to a restaurant, just let them. I mean, it was minimal, but just I think the most fun for me to watch was at Greenfield Village, because you got into the places where the guys were talking and that. We were with and just going in, and it was raining the one day, and they got stuck in the hat place. So here the boys have to try on the hats, and the girls tried on the hats and all that, because it was raining. What else is there to do? And then the glass blowing. They started asking all these questions, and the guy was supposed to go on his break. He says, "You kids are asking great questions. I'm staying with you." He says, "I'm not taking my break." So that was fun, and we went to the truck,
We toured the F-150
the
plant.
F-150 plant, and the kids asked fantastic questions, and they were just fascinated with it. So it was fun seeing it through their eyes and that. It was a great vacation that we were able to take.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's not my responsibility. I could do all the fun stuff and take them back. Not have to worry about the worrisome stuff. So it was fun to have all the grandkids. Everybody's got their own personalities and trials and tribulations, but I didn't have to deal with much of them. So it was fun.
No, the grandkids were perfect.
That trip, I just missed that I didn't get to do anything like that with Jack and Lily, but we do things.
Mhm.
So
Well, they're independent enough. They did it themselves.
yeah, by that time.
Do you have a favorite memory with the entire family?
Lots. What would be one? I don't know. Just everybody.
Yeah, with everybody.
That, our 50th,
Tell us about that.
that was special.
That
Our
was-
party.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was great.
Just anytime we get together. It's important.
Yeah. No, the 50th was really, really good. That day. Yeah.
Who would have ever thought we would have had that all? A photographer for that. And all the pictures at the.
Yeah, that was great.
Who
Just-
planned it?
Me. No, but the kids, you guys playing the photographer in it, they wanted to give us a 50th party, and I said no. So I planned my own party in September before our anniversary, so they couldn't do it. Because I didn't want them to pay for it. There's the cake and my thing.
Yeah.
And they sent us on the photographer. And that's where we got those pictures from. So, no, my sister came.
Yes.
She was my maid of honor, and his brother was. I think it was fun just taking all the pictures. She did a phenomenal job
Yes, she did.
because that was fun. I love it. They make me smile. Just all you group kids in there.
Yeah.
Looking at?
Well, I love the ones that were just taken under our magnolia here too, with everybody, and the others over at the Wilcott House with the umbrella. Oh, and in the chapel in the church. Yeah. Do we just do pictures there?
In the church, yeah.
That's all we did at the church. They all make me laugh. and Larry's brothers and sisters were there, so we kept it just to immediate family. Didn't even invite some old friends that we got criticized for.
Yeah.
But I wanted it small.
That's right.
So
Well, that place for it turned out great.
it was my mother. My dad never went to church. He only went on Christmas Eve. Him and Uncle Howard would volunteer to go, but we always had to go to the quick mass that was at the Little Sisters of the Poor in their chapel. We never went to a big church. That's the only way we could get my dad to go to church. So Mom would settle for that once a year. Or he would come to confirmation or any event I had, but he wasn't a church goer. Well, so it was Mom that we went to church with all the time, every Sunday and that. Catholic school, grade schools and that. So
Ours was family, and I think we went mainly to the 11 o'clock mass, especially when we were young. When you got to be teenagers, the boys especially, then we went to the 11, but it was a separate area where you sat and that type of thing. But both Chuck and I were servers also, so we did that regularly too. So I think it was a big part of our upbringing, and I think it's it was a good basis.
it's a nice foundation.
Yeah, that's right.
To bring up
very
your
much,
kids.
very much so.
You don't have to make all the decisions yourself. You got
Yeah.
something behind you to back you on some things, So, but I remember my first communion.
Oh yeah.
I came down with chicken pox.
Oh well, yeah, you would remember it. Yeah.
and we had to be at church in the morning, and then I had a fever and stuff, and Mom gave me stuff and just put me back in my dress, and we went back for the evening thing. That's what you did back then. You did what you had to do. You did
Well,
quarantine.
But see, around Easter with the big family, there was every year. There was measles, mumps, chicken pox. There was
three.
always something,
Somebody was
going
sick
on with it. So, it some of the young today don't understand what things were going on at that time and how these vaccines and these inoculations make a big difference to controlling those things.
Okay. Oh, I think having us go to church together and getting married in the church and bringing all of our kids up in Catholic schools,
Yeah.
So you managed to come up with tuition that you never had to pay before when we went to school. It was very little. I think you had to pay at Central, a couple $100 or something
Yeah.
for tuition back then, but not the thousands you have to pay now,
Right.
even for grade school. So.
I think it was a real strong foundation for to have values. I think together.
No, I liked. That was a family thing.
Yeah.
I think back then it was just something you did, but now you want to do it and you're closer. I feel bad when you can't go to church. You just pray more.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I feel.
Yeah. I agree.
Do you? Hey, we agree on something. No. Right answer.
That's one.
You just deal with it. It's not easy. You just got to face it. You can't walk away from stuff. You just got to work through it. Talk.
Yep.
Financially, you just do what you can do.
Mm.
Pay your bills, and like I say, we counted on his bonus checks. That helped us at the end of every year. Helped our budget look a whole lot better, you know, because you didn't have the burden of doctor bills then. We could pay something off. And
Yeah, financially, as far as
It's
I'm
hard.
concerned, it was easy because all I did was
bring the check.
make some money, and she was able to deal with and budget within that situation. So
But you just got to write things down and know. I still do it every month. I have a notebook and just write it down. So.
And I think the one thing I had said to one person one time, and that's Dave Gomer, when we're talking and that type of thing, and Ma's really good with needs and wants. And so often somebody wants to snatch up the wants before they take care of the needs. And the needs you have to take care of in order to continue. So and
thank you.
she's always been able to handle those things. So that's the most important part
To
of
me,
it all.
it's just everyday life. So.
Yeah.
COVID's been a lifesaver because I could care less if I shop or do anything. I could care less to go shopping anymore. Being together.
Yes. Being together and
Our
we have such a great satisfaction in our family.
Yes.
Yes. Our children, their spouses, their children, we are so blessed,
To have the family.
Yep. That's, we get so much satisfaction out of the enjoyment we get out of the kids as far as,
Just
and the
sitting at the
enjoyment they
cottage
get out of
watching
us.
what's going on.
So I mean, it's
Just being
it's-
together.
Yes, it's so great. Yeah.
So, that's what we like.
Well, I think one thing was the assassination of President Kennedy,
Yeah.
and I mean it affected not individually, but pretty much overall.
The world.
That's one thing. And I think technology-wise, the ability to go to the moon, which started with Texas Instruments, which started with computers,
Well,
mini
just all the
computers,
technology that's available now.
that stuff has
wasn't
come so
there.
far. That stuff, that's been very significant in our lives. Yeah. We don't have a landline anymore, right? So, that's a phone line. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
nothing's really impacted us except for economy and what's impacted everybody.
On the wedding day,
Keep her happy.
for the man to see the happiness that has taken place, and to be able to expand that through the lifetime. Never to go to bed on a argument. And the biggest one is needs and wants. Because if we go back to CFM, when people were bringing things back in, and they asked people at work, we're doing this for
Discussion.
homework, and just what and the ability to, with the wants and needs, is the ability to take care of the most arguments that back then in those days, and might be the same these days, and that has been money. One spends and one doesn't, or something like that. So that has to be enmeshed to start with.
And you need to think about the other person and maybe something you don't want to do and they do. You got to give and take and to do things together and to be together.
Yep. having an understanding of each other and each other's emotions.
I can sing for you if you want.
Oh, no. No. You don't do that.